I never expected my daughter to choose love over wealth. Her choice left us all in tears. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. A delicate moment, sharp as broken glass. My heart raced when I saw her standing there, hand in hand with him, her eyes sparkling with a dangerous thrill. The air thickened with tension, like a storm ready to unleash its wrath. Their laughter filled the room, but all I heard was the echo of our family's dreams crashing down. Rachel had always been the bright star in our lives. A chorus of support surrounded her, my husband and I with our hopes high, building futures of luxury and comfort. She was our pride, the promise of prosperity. But that day, as I pulled back the curtain, I had to hold my breath. She had chosen him, a young artist, passionate but practically broke. I felt the walls close in. Wealth slipped through my fingers like sand. "Mom," she called, her voice a melody. But there was a courage in her gaze that shook me. She was no longer the girl who sought my approval. She was resolute, determined to follow her heart. I wanted to scream, to tell her about the glimmering life she was throwing away, but the words choked in my throat. The silence grew heavier. My husband shifted beside me, his expression a mixture of confusion and disbelief. How could we have raised a daughter who would choose the uncertain path of love? I could see our family's plans unraveling, the grand house we had envisioned, the lavish parties we dreamed to host. It felt as if the very ground beneath us was crumbling. Looking around, I saw the judgment in the eyes of our friends. Whispers darted between them, cold and cutting. "She'll regret this," a woman said, her voice dripping with disdain. I recognized the flicker of shame that danced through the crowd, and it twisted the knife deeper into my heart. My girl stood strong, but I felt the tremors of fear shaking my own resolve. "Rachel, think about your future," I managed to say, my words thick with desperation. I reached out, wanting to pull her back, wanting to erase the doubts creeping into my mind. But in that moment, she turned her head, a soft strength radiating from her like a beacon. "Mom," she said softly, but with the weight of a decision that could reshape the universe. "This is what I want. Love is worth more than money." And in that instant, I knew the fire of her passion would not be easily extinguished. That I felt a pit form in my stomach. The reality was here, tangible and unyielding. What if she was wrong? What if love wasn't enough? As if sensing my turmoil, Rachel squeezed his hand tighter. I could see the glimmer of joy in her eyes, but it felt overshadowed by doubt. I was standing on a precipice, looking down into uncertainty, and just like that, I was left with a question that felt like a stone in my chest. Was love truly more valuable than the life we had built so carefully? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed were a blur of heartache and confusion. I found myself haunted by Rachel's words, playing on repeat in my mind. Love is worth more than money. Each time I relived that moment, it felt like a sharp reminder of my own fragility. How could I let it shatter me this way? I had always believed that security was the highest virtue, yet here was my daughter, challenging everything I knew. Our once bright kitchen became a shadow of its former self. I would sit across from my husband, Tom, morning after morning, the clinking of our spoons in silence signaling our unspoken grief. He tried to fill the space with chatter about his work, but I could see the weight of disappointment resting on his shoulders. We lost more than Rachel that day. We lost our vision of the life we had promised each other. Hiding beneath the surface of my despair was a flicker of something deeper, a stirring I didn't want to acknowledge. Was it jealousy? Resentment? Or perhaps envy of the love that Rachel and her artist held so boldly for each other? The kind of love that felt reckless and hauntingly beautiful. They were weaving hopes and dreams on threads of uncertainty, while I was rooted in a soil of pragmatism, watering expectations with tears. One evening, I stumbled upon Rachel's sketchbook in her room, a keepsake I had overlooked amidst the chaos. Drawings, half-finished and vibrant, danced across the pages. They bore her spirit, wild and untethered. I turned the pages slowly, mesmerized by the rawness and vulnerability of her art. Each stroke seemed to breathe life into the turmoil I felt within. In the last drawing, she captured two figures near the shore, their hands entwined, staring out toward an endless horizon, where love and dreams intertwined. My heart ached, caught between admiration and fear. I wanted to call her back, to tell her that safety was real, that the world could be cruel and uncertain. Yet, there was a beauty in this uncertainty. She was drawing closer to I had never dared to explore. The next day, as the sun slipped behind the clouds, a knock at the door broke the heavy silence of our home. I opened it to find a delivery man with a bouquet of wildflowers, a vibrant jumble of colors that made me feel dizzy. I stepped aside to let him in, warily accepting the surprise. The card read, "For love and for courage. Never let go of your dreams." That it was sent from Rachel. I felt a pang of warmth in my chest. Her thoughtfulness cascaded through me like a cool breeze on a warm day. But then the dread sank in. If she valued love and dreams so deeply, then what was my role? Would she still want me in her life? Would all our dreams come crashing down? That evening, after mulling over the flowers and the stirring they brought, I decided to take a step I had been avoiding: reaching out to her. I picked up the phone, trembling, my heart racing as I dialed her number. As I waited, I envisioned her voice, so full of life, clad in passion. I wanted to hear her laughter again, but the call went straight to voicemail. "Hey, this is Rachel. Leave a message." Her bright tone, tinged with the sense of youthful rebellion, made my chest ache. I hung up, breathing through the frustration that bubbled beneath my skin. I stepped outside, each breath in sync with the cool breeze that kissed my cheeks, and found myself in the garden where her wildflowers had grown. I knelt down, fingers brushing over the petals, feeling connected to something larger. And just as I began to let hope seep in, something caught my eye: a figure across the street. Rachel stood beside her artist, radiant in a way that struck me deep. They were laughing softly, sharing secrets under the dimming light. But then, I froze, the moment twisted as I noticed her eyes darting toward a looming shadow emerging from behind the bushes. A figure slowly coming closer, one whose intentions I could not read. As he stepped into the light, the color drained from my face. It was a man I recognized, a disapproving face familiar from family gatherings, someone entwined in the circles of wealth and influence, which I thought might now tarnish my daughter's moment of love. My heart raced as I felt dread surge within me. What did he want? Would he snatch away her happiness to uphold the status quo we clung to? In that charged moment, doubt crashed over me like a tidal wave. I was losing her once more, and perhaps, along with her, my own sense of identity. The weight of uncertainty settled heavily on my chest. I hesitated at the threshold, caught in a crossroads of love and fear. Would Rachel choose her family and security, or pursue her dreams against all odds? Days turned into an agonizing blur as I sat between the weight of worry and the urgency of action. The scene across the street replayed endlessly in my mind, Rachel's laughter mingling with the man's apprehensive shadow. My heart clenched at the memory of his presence, rope tightening my anxiety. What was he saying to her? Was he sowing seeds of doubt about her choices, casting shadows over love's delicate bloom? Each morning, I awoke with a lingering sense of dread, ever present like a cloud refusing to dissipate. The wildflowers Rachel had sent began to weaken, drooping as if they, too, were feeling the pull of despair. I tended to them, yet no matter how much I admired their vibrant colors, I could not shake the feeling that those colors would soon fade if Rachel didn't come back to meet us. One evening, a bittersweet memory found me as I rummaged through a box of old photographs. I unearthed images from a time when Tom and I had steered clear of the weight of expectations, hearts buoyant and laughter unrestrained. One photograph captured us mid-dance, arms around each other, our faces alight with the joy of youth and spontaneity. A pang of longing flooded through me, reminding me of the unrestrained love I had once feared losing. Maybe it's time to talk, I said softly, turning to Tom, who sat in shadow, lost in thought. I needed him to see the graduation of our daughter's love, a progression I feared he wouldn't understand. How could he? He had always held firm to the ideal that equilibrium came from financial security. I don't know what to say, he replied quietly. His voice trembled slightly, a shared fear, perhaps, that our daughter's life choices would break us further. She was raised to be realistic. It's hard to watch this now, seeing her throw it all away, but is she throwing it all away, Tom? My words emerged like a plea, raw and desperate. She's chasing something beautiful. I don't want to lose her like we lost each other in the process of finding safety. We fell into silence, the weight of our unspoken fears closing in. I could see in Tom's eyes his own internal battle, his heart at war with the ideals he had held steadfast against the awakening of the emotions he had buried deep. I hoped he would see Rachel as a mirror reflecting our lost selves, the lovers we had once been, the dreamers who dared to believe in their own love story. Days dragged on, and I found myself retreating deeper into solitude. My fingers often brushed against Rachel's sketches, mud-stained and weathered from sitting by the garden. Each soft line and delicate curve resonated louder than my words ever could, speaking the truth of her dreams. On a particularly heavy afternoon, when the skies threatened to cry, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. I opened the door to find an old neighbor, Mrs. Collins, a woman whose kindness often felt like sunlight on dark, cloudy days. She had brought over cookies, a simple yet thoughtful gesture of comfort. "Just checking in, my dear," she said, her eyes warm and wise. "Sometimes it helps to share the load. You look like you could use a friend." As we settled into the kitchen, her presence felt grounding, reminding me that life continued to flow regardless of heartache. Over cups of tea, she shared stories of her own daughter, the paths she had walked and the choices that had once caused deep concern, only to lead to blooming fulfillment. "Love is a powerful thing," she mused, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "It teaches us, breaks us, and ultimately, heals us if we let it. It takes courage to trust those we love to chase their own happiness." As she spoke, I felt the warmth of her words wrap around me, pushing aside the fears gripping my heart. Maybe I, too, needed to let go a little, allow Rachel the same room for exploration I had once cherished. Could I shed my own rigid notions of happiness for the sake of her growth? When evening shadows climbed the walls, I found myself glancing out the window, my heart hopeful yet weighted. Was Rachel with her love? Was she safe? As if in answer, my phone buzzed, the familiar sound bursting through the quiet. Breathless, I grabbed the device and saw her name shimmering on the screen. "Mom, can we talk?" The text was short but thunderous, an unexpected ripple in the fabric of my evening. "There's something important I need to share." With a racing heart, I texted back, hoping to mask my trepidation with enthusiasm. "Of course. When do you want to meet?" "I'm outside. Can you come out?" Throwing open the door, I rushed into the cool night, searching for her amidst shadows. I spotted Rachel standing by her old Jeep, the glow from the street lamp illuminating her features. She looked beautiful yet vulnerable, a flame flickering in the night. That I took a step forward, my heart pounding with anticipation, but before I could reach her, the mysterious figure I had seen weeks ago emerged from the darkness behind her. No longer a passive player in this unfolding story, he stepped forward, his expression serious. "Rachel, we need to talk," the man said firmly, his voice steady. "Now." The air turned thick with tension, a sudden understanding coiled tight within my chest. I felt it was at a precipice, standing beside a choice that could shift everything. My anguish mixed with a raw, protective instinct as I realized, someone was about to shatter the fragile security we had around our love. That I froze, caught in a moment, suspended between panic and hope. Would Rachel choose her dreams, standing unyielding like the wildflowers I had nurtured, or would she succumb to the weight of expectation, allowing fear to govern her heart yet again? And within that pregnant pause, a part of me whispered a cruel truth. I was left to question, once more, whether love would be enough. The night air was palpable with tension, every breath I took laden with uncertainty. My heart raced in rhythm with the flickering flame of lamplight, illuminating the profound conflict brewing before me. Rachel stood inches away, the strength of her spirit clashing with the force of the man I had come to dread, a silhouette emerging out of darkness like a storm cloud. "Who is he, Rachel?" My voice broke through the thick silence, sharp and desperate. "What does he want?" For a fleeting moment, her eyes flickered toward me as if searching for unspoken support. My heart ached with the instinctual urge to shield her from whatever turmoil was lurking in the shadows of her decisions. But she wasn't that innocent little girl anymore, she was on the cusp of becoming something greater, someone whose choices would not always align with mine. "He's just that's trying to help me," Rachel exclaimed, her expression a turbulent mix of defiance and doubt. "But help in what way?" I pressed, feeling my insides twist at the very concept of this stranger holding sway over my daughter's heart. The man stepped closer, his tone earnest yet edged with a strange urgency. "Aiden. We need to talk about the opportunities Rachel has. I don't want her to lose any chance." Because of his gaze drifted toward me, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Because of what others might think that I felt the nerves coil in my stomach. He had the audacity to suggest my concern was trivial. "This is about Rachel's future, not some fleeting whim. You're asking her to gamble with her life, and I won't just stand by Mom," Rachel interrupted, her voice steady but strained, a brave veneer pooling over rising fears. "It's my life. This isn't just about you or Dad, this is about me. I want to choose what makes me happy, not what's safe." Her words brought forth a swell of realization, one that mirrored the conversation I had shared with Mrs. Collins. Yet, they felt like shards of glass cutting through the love I'd born for my daughter. Had I truly limited her sense of freedom out of my own fear? Aiden took a step back, allowing Rachel to shine in the clarity of this moment. "I've been offering her an opportunity to explore her art on a larger platform, to be seen. She has a gift that shouldn't just be tucked away." The way he spoke of Rachel stirred something deep within me, understanding mingled with protectiveness. The idea of her stepping outside the boundaries of our small town, pursuing her art, was terrifying, yet a flicker of pride ignited within me, too. What if this is just a distraction? I argued weakly, desperation clawing at my words. "What if you're leading her away from everything we've worked for?" Aiden's gaze was steady, unwavering against the tempest of my fears. "No, Mrs. Foster. This is about being brave enough to embrace who Rachel is. She can have both a life filled with love and purpose, if she chooses it. But she has to choose for herself." Rachel's eyes sparkled with a mix of determination and uncertainty that felt contagious. As she looked at me, it was as though she were asking for more than just my approval, she was seeking affirmation of her right to govern her own heart. "Please, Mom," she begged softly, "just trust me. I want you to be proud of me, not scared." And in that moment, I felt a vulnerable shift within my heart. Was my fear smothering her spirit, blinding me to the possibility of a life where triumph didn't require sacrifice? Before I could respond, a commotion erupted nearby, a flash of blue and red lights lighting the dark. Police sirens pierced through the tension, echoing in the quiet night beyond us. Aiden's demeanor changed immediately, tension coiling tighter in the air as the urgency of the situation sank in. "I have to go," he said hastily, glancing back toward the approaching vehicle. "Rachel, trust me. We'll talk again. You don't have to decide now." That he stepped closer to her, a fleeting connection that sent a shockwave of unforeseen jealousy coursing through me. "You know where to find me," he added, his voice softening into something tender, and just like that, he was swallowed by the enveloping darkness, leaving an unsettling air behind him. Rachel remained rooted, an ocean of conflicting emotions washing over her face as she turned toward the oncoming lights, a blend of disappointment and longing etched onto her features. "Mom," she said, breaking the spell. "What do we do now?" But before I could formulate an answer, the police vehicle came to a halt, bright headlights catching Rachel's expression and illuminating her with stark clarity. Below the chaos, a terrible truth emerged, a sense of impending change hung like fog in the air, dark and thick. This encounter had upended our world. What once seemed secure was now shifting like sand beneath our feet. And there I stood, torn between the fierce desire to hold her close and the necessity of releasing her into an uncertain future. Would I be able to breathe through this, allow her the freedom she sought but fearfully fought against? As the officers emerged and approached us, my heart twisted not just for Rachel, but for the sudden understanding that our love, threatened by external turbulence, could no longer remain a refuge if it were to withstand the storm. Mrs. Foster, one officer said with a grim expression. We need to talk to you about Rachel's safety. My breath caught. Something was brewing larger than any of us had anticipated. What dark currents lay ahead, threatening to sweep us all into its depths? All I knew was that in this moment, love would demand the very courage we had underestimated all along. The officer's voice reverberated in my ears, but the world around me began to fade, warped by the flood of anxiety rising in my chest. I could see the shadows of uncertainty creeping in, casting doubts that had lain dormant until now, whispering betrayals about what the future might hold for Rachel. Jose, the officer, looked gently at Rachel, as if trying to gauge the balance of vulnerability and fortitude she carried. Ma'am, we've received some reports of suspicious activity linked to Aiden, and you may not be safe if you continue your friendship with him, he explained, his tone even but tinted with a shadow that deepened my worry. Rachel's face paled, tears blinking to the surface of her wide, doe-like eyes. What do you mean? He's not dangerous. He's trying to help me. But that's just it. We have reason to believe he's involved in something illegal, the officer replied, his grip tightening on the weight of his words. You need to remember that sometimes people don't reveal their true intentions. I felt the pit in my stomach grow deeper, a chasm of panic swallowing the hope I had barely allowed to bloom. My instinct to protect Rachel gnawed at my heart. Could I really support her desires while sheltering her from potential threats? Do you have proof? What kind of illegal activities? I asked, desperation threading my words. The details are sensitive, the officer said, focusing on the ground, as if afraid to meet Rachel's gaze full on. Drug-related, they say. There have been indications of recruitment in accessible areas. We're doing a sweep right now. Rachel stared up at me, her breath quickening, the vulnerability cutting through her like a knife. For a moment, I panicked at the thought that I may have pushed her toward an unimaginable danger, an unseen wave that could shatter her dreams and drown her spirit. Mom, it can't be true. Rachel cried, her voice trembling. Aiden wouldn't do that. He wouldn't. Yet a nagging voice in my mind, one that had echoed through so many sleepless nights, whispered that sometimes even the brightest stars held dark secrets. I don't know, Rachel, but we need to be cautious. You have to promise me you won't just walk into this blindly. I can't lose you to something I can't protect you from, I replied, desperate to hold on to the threads of her safety. The police officer shifted uneasily, sensing the growing storm before us. We recommend you stay away from him until we can verify his activities. It's for your own good. His words hung in the air, steeped in concern but also laden with a finality that made my heart clench. With trembling hands, Rachel took a step backward, her eyes glistening like wet petals that feared withering under the weight of the impending storm. Mom, you don't understand. He's been so supportive. He's the only one who sees my art as something beautiful. I felt another layer of panic rise within, intermingling with traits of jealousy, dread, and a profound fear of losing her to someone who might pull her deeper into the dark currents. Rachel, please. I urged, straining to keep my voice steady. I cannot see you hurt. Can't you understand how much I love you? But this is my life, don't you see? It's not just about being safe. It's about finding what makes me feel alive. She exclaimed, with a fierceness that echoed the rebellion of youth. Her trust in Aiden twisted its way into resentment as she looked between the officer and me, feeling cornered, exposed like a fragile butterfly pinned to a board. That I reached to comfort her but was struck by the barrier that had grown between us, a profound divide forged by a bond of fear and ambition tearing in opposite directions. What if we could meet him together? Rachel proposed with a flicker of hope, an attempt to bridge this widening gap. Just to understand, to see for ourselves. What if you find he isn't the enemy? No. I exclaimed, my voice sharper than I intended. We can't risk it, Rachel. I won't let you. This isn't just about your art, this is about your safety. Tears spilled down her cheeks, glistening under the harsh police lights, the fear in her eyes mirrored my own storm of panic. The statement hung between us, so heavily laden with truth yet so deeply burdensome. The officer cleared his throat, watching as we grappled with the intensity of our emotions. I know this is hard, he said, his compassionate presence grounding the tension. But it might be best to take a break from everything for now. I can arrange for someone to take you home. The word used to invoke a sense of safety was now laced with trepidation. As we turned from the chaos, I felt the finality of the moment, a heavy acknowledgement that our lives were indeed unmoored. A nagging doubt crept in, entangling itself in my heart of fear that the very fabric of our family was beginning to tear, fraying with every choice that would lead us further apart. Rachel climbed into the back seat of the patrol car, her eyes filled with a mix of resentment and unwavering love. I joined her, feeling the weight of words unspoken, my heart heavy with sorrow for the decisions we both faced. As we drove away, Rachel turned to me, and I caught sight of her fragile optimism fighting against the rising tide of doubt. "You'll find a way, Mom," she promised quietly, the struggle evident on her face. There was a flame within her, one that glinted with determination but also flickered with uncertainty. That I wanted to reassure her, but how could I support a dream that might lead her into danger? And what if Aiden turned out to be more than just an innocent face in the night, but a catalyst for pain, the kind that threatened to break us apart irreparably? We arrived at the house, the familiar surroundings becoming eerily unfamiliar, a backdrop painted with shadows and doubt. As I glanced at Rachel, I felt the heavy hand of fear settle over me. If this was the calm before a storm, we wouldn't survive. And as I processed the evening, I could not shake the feeling that we were caught in an intricate web, and worse, that Aiden may be the one holding the strings. Would Rachel be able to navigate this tempest without losing the very essence of who she was? Would I, as her mother, be strong enough to let go when the winds began to howl, guiding her toward winds that could either carry her to success or tear her apart? I shut my eyes, wishing desperately that love alone could shield us from what lay ahead. The shadows of our home loomed larger as I stood in the doorway, each familiar creak of the floor beneath my feet echoing the tumult in my heart. The walls, adorned with memories drenched in laughter and joy, felt like a suffocating tomb where love was now wrestling with dread. Rachel went up to her room, her steps heavy, each thud sending ripples of anxiety through me. What if this was the beginning of an unfixable rift between us? The thought loomed like a thundercloud, threatening to rupture the fragile peace we had tried to maintain. Rachel had long been my beacon, an untainted light in a world that felt perpetually dark. But now, that light flickered, consumed by shadows I could barely comprehend. That I made my way to the living room, unable to shake the image of her tear-streaked face, the anguish palpable, inspiring an unexpected ache within my own heart. This was not how it was supposed to be. My role as her mother was to nurture her spirit, allow her to thrive, and guide her away from harm. Yet here I stood, the walls I built in the name of protection threatening to slay the spirit I sought to defend. That I, in the quiet of the evening, I picked up Rachel's half-finished painting from the coffee table. It was a portrait of twilight, the colors rich with emotion, blues and purples blending together into something otherworldly. The brushstrokes seemed to swirl in a way that echoed the chaos of my thoughts, vivid, thoughtful, and striking. They revealed both excitement and trepidation. "Mom." Rachel's voice broke the stillness, warm yet shaky. She appeared in the doorway, a silhouette against the dim lighting, hesitant, searching for an anchor amidst her own storm. I placed the painting back down, forcing myself to meet her gaze. "Hey, honey," I said, my voice softer as I motioned for her to join me. "Do you want to talk? I just don't understand," she said, a fresh wave of tears surfacing. She sat beside me, crossing her arms protectively. "Why can't you trust me? You know who I am, what I want. Why can't you believe in me and Aiden?" Those words, trust and belief, hit with the force of a gale, unsettling the remnants of my resolve. "It's not that I don't trust you, Rachel. I trust you completely. It's Aiden." My voice faltered as fear draped over my words. "I just don't know him, and what if he leads you down a path of no return?" then let me find out for myself. She implored, frustration creeping into her tone, punctuated by that furious spark of determination I so admired. You talk about the future, and I want to embrace it. But how can I do that if I have to keep running into walls? She let out a shaky breath, and I felt tears prick at the corners of my own eyes. I'm scared, Rachel. I'm scared of losing you to something dark that I can't fight against. At that moment, an unexpected warmth enveloped me, a gentle touch of reassurance that life could still offer kindness amidst chaos. Rachel grasped my hand, her fingers slender yet fierce, the pulse of our connection igniting the flickering embers of hope. Mom, I won't let that happen. I promise. But you have to let me make mistakes to learn. All I'm asking is for a chance to navigate this myself. She squeezed my hand tighter. It was a pull, a plea for understanding that buried deep within it was hope, desperate yet compelling, and just like that, a thought gnawed at the edges of my mind. Maybe Aiden wasn't the end of Rachel's beautiful world, but the beginning of a path that led to her own understanding of life and love. And if he is the wrong choice? I whispered, vulnerability leaking into the air between us. Then he'll deal with it. But I can't let fear dictate my decisions, Mom. I need to be free to explore. As I looked into her eyes, something shifted, a subtle acknowledgement that perhaps love's promise also included the willingness to let go. I opened my mouth to respond, to help ease the tension coiling between us, but the doorbell rang, jangling the stillness of our moment. Rachel and I exchanged wary glances, her grip on my hand tightening reflexively. Who could that be? I murmured, unease settling over my shoulders like a heavy cloak. That I don't know, Rachel replied, her face shifting between hope and anxiety. Maybe it's Aiden. The realization struck me cold, my heart raced. Could he be so bold as to show up at our doorstep after everything? Stay here, I instructed as I moved toward the door, letting out a shaky breath to steady myself. As I opened it, my heart fell into an icy void. There stood a familiar figure, a stark reminder of the life Rachel had wanted to escape. Diane, a friend from our old neighborhood and a current member of a clique who thrived on drama and scrutiny. I heard about what happened, she said, her eyes gleaming with unfounded curiosity. Is Rachel okay? I swallowed my agitation. Who cared about her curiosity when my daughter was in turmoil? We're dealing with it, Diane. The edge in my voice was evident as I tried to guard my daughter's sanctuary. Isn't it just like her to get involved with that guy? Diane continued, an insidious smile creeping across her lips. You know he's bad news. That I turned back to see Rachel standing in the living room, visibly unsettled, her defiance almost wavering in the face of this unwelcome visitor. With newfound resolve, I decided to protect my daughter from further hurt. That's enough, I said firmly, stepping into the threshold, blocking Diane from entering. Rachel's choices are hers alone. She doesn't need your judgment or interference. As I closed the door, I turned to find Rachel's eyes filled with a storm, a mixture of gratitude and confusion. What do I do about Aiden? And about the rumors? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, like a flickering candle about to be snuffed out. That I don't know yet, I confessed, my heart twisting. But we can face it together, whatever it is. But in that moment of unity, a thought cut through the darkness, a whisper of potential catastrophe as I remembered the officer's warnings. I hesitated, torn between my protective instincts and the need to embrace Rachel's freedom. Then I noticed a message lighting up my phone. My breath caught as I read the words from Aiden himself, "We need to talk. It's urgent." The tension in the air thickened to a choking haze, and my heart raced against the clock of uncertainty. As I felt Rachel's gaze darting to my screen, yearning for answers, a chilling weight settled in my chest. What secrets did Aiden harbor? Would Rachel's unwavering trust lead her into darkness? And more frighteningly, could I let her navigate it alone as that philosophical flame inside of her dared to reach for the stars? As the tension crystallized into anticipation, I felt a dawning realization that life would never be the same again, and that the true battle for our hearts was just about to begin. The air hung thick with dread, an insistent pulse that quickened my heart as I stared at the message blinking on my screen. Rachel's eyes locked onto mine, a mirror reflecting her confusion and fading hope. The storm we were weathering together felt more like a deluge threatening to drown our fragile bond. "Mom, what did he say?" Rachel's voice trembled, battling between lucidity and panic. Why would he need to talk urgently? I swallowed hard, the weight of my hesitation threatening the fragile trust we had begun to rebuild. "It's about Aiden. I don't know how to explain, but I think we may be dealing with a sudden knock," echoed through the stillness, grave and demanding, reverberating with a kind of urgency that sent waves of unease crashing over me, but I couldn't let Rachel see the depth of my fear. I cast a quick glance at Rachel, who mirrored my trepidation, and took a slow breath before moving toward the door once again. Just as I reached the threshold, panic seized me. "What if it's Aiden?" Rachel whispered, her voice a thread tight with anxiety. "Then we'll face him together," I replied, realizing how unprepared I truly felt. I opened the door, my heart drumming like a war cry. However, it wasn't Aiden waiting on the other side, it was the unexpected presence of a police officer, stern yet empathetic. "Good evening, ma'am," he said, glancing past me into the house. "Is Rachel here?" My breath caught in my throat, an eerie chill wrapping around my spine. "What do you mean?" I managed, my voice steadier than the quake I felt inside that he hesitated, a flicker of concern washing over his features. "We have some concerns about Aiden's involvement in some troubling situations lately. We wanted to ask Rachel a few questions." Rachel materialized beside me like a candle in the wind, every bit still and fragile. "What do you want with me?" she asked, her voice flicking like a flame fighting to survive. The officer kept his gaze steady. "It's important that we understand what you know about Aiden. We want to make sure you're safe." His eyes softened slightly, as if he understood the weight of his words and how they fell onto our shoulders. That I exchanged looks with Rachel, a tidal wave of emotion seizing us both, their gray depths revealing fear, betrayal, and the remnants of hope. "Rachel, maybe we should," I began, wanting to shield her from whatever revelations were lurking beneath the surface. But Rachel stared back, her expression set with defiance and curiosity. "That I want to hear what he has to say," she stated, her resolve steeling like iron. "If Aiden isn't who I thought he was, I need to know." Before I could respond, she turned to the officer. "What do you mean troubling situations?" The officer regarded Rachel with a seriousness that sent tremors through my spine. "There have been incidents reported involving Aiden with some unsavory individuals. We're investigating potential connections." Rachel's face drained of color, hope flickering and dimming. "You're saying he's in trouble?" "More like he may be intertwined in something larger than he realizes," he replied, urgency crackling in his voice. "I understand that this is probably difficult to hear, but it's crucial that you remain cautious. What will happen to him?" she whispered, the vulnerable edge in her voice breaking through my heart like glass. "That's what we're here to find out. We just want to ensure that you're not drawn into whatever it is," he said, his eyes full of concern for her well-being, but with uncertainty hanging like a loose thread. Tears weaved along Rachel's cheeks, a silent acknowledgement of the dangerous precipice she stood upon. Every moment stretched into forever, a painful contemplation of love, trust, and what it could all mean when faced with the shadows threatening to swallow the light whole. "I need to see him. I need to talk to him," Rachel pleaded, her desperation rising like the tide. "If he is in trouble, I have to help him. He needs me." That I reached out, the instinct to hold and protect surging like fire in my veins. "Rachel, wait. We don't know what he's involved in. Please, Mom." She turned to me, her eyes shimmering with tears that begged for understanding. "He's more than the rumors. I want to believe in him. And if I let you shield me from everything, he'll never know what's real." With that, I was trapped between two lives, standing on a threshold of emotions that threatened to swallow us whole. The officer's presence felt as out of place as a dark cloud on a sunlit day, and I suddenly realized how high the stakes had become. For every moment that passed, the tangled web of fear, love, and hope coiled tighter around our hearts, leaving us gasping for clarity. Just then, my phone chimed again, and my eyes flitted to the screen. A message from Aiden: "I'm on my way. We can't let anyone know." A fresh wave of panic washed over me. Whatever lay ahead of us, whatever choice Rachel made, was about to tip us into a whirlpool I feared we could never return from. Would the door of opportunity usher in clarity, or devastation? As I turned, Rachel's eyes filled with renewed resolve, yet uncertainty loomed like a storm brewing on the horizon. What choice would my daughter make? And could I find a way to navigate this tumultuous terrain without losing everything? The future stretched out before us vast, uncertain, and filled with the promise of tears, and just like that, I realized I was gripping the precipice of change, ready or not. All that was certain was that the coming moments would demand as much courage as love itself. The weight of Aiden's text hung in the air as I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Rachel's determination was a palpable force, an unyielding current pulling her towards Aiden as though an invisible tether connected them. I watched helplessly, torn between the instinct to protect her and the realization that I had to let her make her own choices, regardless of how perilous those choices might seem. "Mom, I'm going to meet him," Rachel declared, her voice steady but laced with a hunger for clarity. The fear in her eyes mingled with unwavering resolve, revealing layers of complexity that made my heart ache. "Rachel, please," I urged, desperation leaking into my tone. "We don't even know what he might be involved in. You could be in danger." "I'll be careful," she insisted, a flicker of anger igniting within her. "You've always taught me to face what scares me, to seek the truth. I won't let fear dictate my life anymore." I wanted to scream, to shake some sense into her, but I knew it would only fracture the delicate bond we had begun to repair. The officer's silence felt like an echo amplifying the gravity of the moment. He stood watching the interplay between mother and daughter, his eyes a mixture of empathy and concern, as if wrestling with his own memories of the choices he had made in the past. "Rachel," I whispered, my hand reaching out to her, "if you go, I can't protect you." But she whispered back words that would cling to my memory like shadows even as they echoed in my heart. They brought a chill. "Mom, you can't protect me from everything. I need to do this." As she moved past me towards the door, a flood of emotion surged through me, overwhelming love mingled with an insatiable fear of losing her. Just as she lifted her hand to the doorknob, a shadow moved into the area beside us, capturing her attention. A familiar voice drew us both back to the moment at hand. "Rachel." It was Sam, her childhood friend, who had always been a source of light in her life. "Please don't do this." Surprised, Rachel turned, and a rush of emotions played across her face. "Sam, stay out of this." "No." He interrupted, stepping farther into our shared space, the sincerity of his concern framing his features into a mask of devotion. "I've heard things about Aiden, things I wish I could unhear. He's not the boy you think he is. There's real danger involved. I can help you." I watched as a cloud of distress darkened Rachel's eyes. "What do you know?" The edge of anger crept into her voice, a reflection of her desire to shield her heart from the truth. "I mean it, Rachel." Sam pressed, his voice raw with emotion. "He's mixed up with some serious people. If he's coming here, it's not to talk about just the two of you. This is bigger than what you think." Rachel bit her lip, brow furrowed in conflict. For a fleeting moment, doubt flickered in her gaze before she shook it away. "I need to see him. This is my choice, it's not just about you anymore," I interjected desperately. "What if you get caught in the crossfire of something much darker? We need to prioritize your safety." Sam stepped closer, desperation evident in his posture. "Rachel, I care about you. I don't want to lose you to this," he pleaded, his voice breaking with emotion. The tension in the room escalated, combining the heavy air with an electricity that sent shivers down my spine. Rachel stood at a crossroads, but my determination to protect her was both a shackle and a lifeline. Suddenly, just as a burgeoning storm seemed to swell in my chest, Aiden's voice reverberated through the doorway. "Rachel. Are you there?" It was a calling that summoned hope and chaos all at once. "Mom, let me," Rachel whispered, her resolve crystallizing once more. "I have to see him." "No." I cried out, but she was already stepping towards the door, her face lit with a mix of longing and fear, illuminating the path she had chosen. But in that instant, the world felt as though it tipped precariously on its axis. Without warning, as if fate had conspired to unveil deeper truths, a muffled sound echoed through the hall. Something falling, something shattering. "Rachel, wait." I Hurried after her, panic surging within me. As we reached the door, we found Aidan standing there, framed by the fading light of the evening. His eyes widened as he noticed Sam, and that flicker of fear that danced in his gaze was enough to stop my heart. Get away from her. Aidan spat, a sudden ferocity igniting within him, but before I could process the tension, a dark blur erupted from behind him. A figure I hadn't anticipated. There, lurking on the edge of the darkness, was a man whose presence drugged the air with danger, and I felt, rather than saw, the final thread of our reality unraveling before us. All around us, the storm of emotions, uncertainty, and lethal possibilities spiraled out of control. The stakes had been raised, and now there was no way back. Would Rachel still choose Aidan, or in the face of truth, would she find where her true love lay? The gust of wind from outside flung the door wide open, causing Rachel to stumble back half a step, eyes darting from Aidan's wild expression to the man shrouded in darkness. My heart raced as I stood frozen, the weight of the world crashing down upon me. Who is that? Rachel's voice trembled, her frantic gaze flickering with apprehension and a lingering curiosity, as though drawn toward a dangerous flame. That's just someone I know, Aidan stammered, his bravado cracking beneath the gravity of the moment. The man lurking in the shadows took a step forward, an authority cloaked in intimidation, eyes piercing through the dim light like daggers. Shouldn't you be careful who you bring into your life, Rachel? He taunted, his voice like gravel, rough and unsettling. Especially if your choices come with strings attached. That I told you to stay away. Aidan's response was a growl, the turmoil between protectiveness and anger spilling from him. This isn't your business, Tom, but the figure only chuckled darkly, casting an eye over Rachel as if gauging her vulnerability. Maybe not, but you've dragged her into this mess. And if you think you can shield her from the truth, you're mistaken. Enough. I finally managed to shout, my lungs burning with urgency. What truth? What's happening here? For a brief moment, the world fell silent, the air thick with unspoken words and heavy tension. Rachel took a step forward, drawn to Aidan, her heart clearly swelling for him though apprehension danced on the edges of her expression. Suddenly, Sam broke the silence, stepping closer to the door as if he were staking a claim. This isn't just a teenage crush, Rachel. This is about your safety. Don't you understand that, Sam? She started, frustration spilling from her. No. Let me finish. He was pleading now, desperation lacing his tone. Aidan isn't who you think he is. Just, please listen. There are things about him you don't know. People he's running from. Things that could hurt you. Aidan's jaw clenched, the tension thickening between them as he fought to defend the image Rachel had of him. I'm not running from anyone. Those rumors are just that, rumors. I'm trying to get my life back on track, by bringing my daughter into your chaos. I stepped forward, but before I could say more, Tom took another step closer, the menace in his eyes gleaming. That I hear things, Aidan, he said, addressing Aidan directly, dismissive yet sharp as a knife. The stakes are climbing, and you might want to think twice before dragging her any deeper. The people you're involved with, they don't play games. Rachel's grip on the doorframe tightened, anxiety rippling through her. What does he mean? Aidan shifted uneasily, his bravado cracking like thin ice. Rachel, I swear, it's all going to be okay. No. She shook her head, emotions playing out across her features like a live wire. You don't get to do that. You don't get to tell me it's okay when it isn't. Fear lit up her eyes, and I realized then that everything came down to a choice, love or safety. Rachel, please, I whispered softly, urgency seeping through my veins. You can't ignore the risk. You can't ignore whatever he's hiding. That I in that moment, separated by mere seconds. Aidan stepped toward Rachel, his voice dropping to a whisper. I promise he'll handle everything, just trust me. Please. But trust felt like a distant star, shimmering but unreachable. The room was electric with potential, every heart beating a heartbeat of uncertainty, of an agonizing choice yet to be made. Rachel. I cried, desperation clawing up my throat. But before she could respond, Tom moved closer, his imposing presence enough to encroach on our fragile web of defenses. Do you really want to know the truth? He said to Rachel, his voice a low rumble, each word echoing with the weight of fate. Would you still choose him if you knew the company he keeps? Stop. Aiden countered, stepping in front of her, protecting her with his overheated anger. You don't know anything about us. You don't have the right to, but Tom's laugh interrupted. As he turned his gaze to Rachel, the corners of his mouth curled wickedly. Aiden is more than the boy you've fallen for. But go ahead, Rachel, choose love without knowing the consequences. Maybe you'll still have your happy ending, or maybe you'll drown in it. All at once, the air crackled, and the stillness shattered into a cacophony of emotions, fear, and secrets. I grasped Rachel's arm, my own heart breaking, a million scenarios playing out within the confines of my mind. Mom, you have to let me. Rachel's voice faltered as the truth hung heavy in the air, but suddenly, a flicker of resolve ignited within her. Then, just as the storm lit up the sky outside, illuminating the room for barely an instant, Tom pulled something from his pocket, a dagger reflecting the harsh light of the world outside, sharp and glimmering. A gasp escaped my lips, a realization dawning. This was not just a confrontation, this was a reckoning. And in this transient moment of clarity, I understood that the path ahead was fraught with dangers that could not simply be ignored. Rachel, no matter what happens, I love you. It was a desperate plea, but would it be enough to pull her back from the edge of darkness? Or had she already chosen a fate intertwined with Aiden's shadows, leading us all toward an inescapable abyss? The sounds of stormy winds outside felt alive, dancing with electric tension as I stood at the brink of a precipice I never wanted to face. My heart pounded. I could feel the world tilting, the precarious balance of love and safety hanging by a thread. In that moment, I was torn between the despair of losing Rachel and the desperate hope that her love could guide her through this tempest. Put that down. I shouted, the urgency in my voice desperate and cutting through the chaos. Aiden stepped protectively in front of Rachel, his face a canvas of regret and fear as he met Tom's heated gaze. This isn't the answer. You've got to stop this, he urged, reaching out both physically and emotionally to Rachel, seeking reassurance from her warm light. The entire room froze, and in that heartbeat, time seemed to stretch infinitely. I could see the conflict swirling inside my daughter, her expression a turbulent sea of emotions. What do you want me to do, Mom? Rachel's voice quivered, uncertainty etched across her features. What if Aiden is really trying to change? What if this is a chance for both of us? Care was reflected in her eyes, a fierce love battling the hidden shadows of doubt she could rear-end. She took a tentative step toward Aiden, a silent show of trust, while I felt my heart shatter within the confines of my chest. Rachel, this isn't a gamble worth taking. I pleaded, my instincts screaming to pull her away. Suddenly, something inside me snapped, and I felt the fierce urgency of love fuel my resolve. I can't impede your journey, but I can't let you risk your life for something that could end in heartbreak or danger. My voice was raw, coated in the weight of a mother's love. Tom let out a snicker of disbelief, clutching the dagger tightly. You know nothing about what it's like to be tangled in these games, he hissed at Aiden, his bravado an ill-considered shield masking the chaos underneath. You must understand, love can't always conquer the shadows. As Aiden's face hardened, almost as if dark clouds had begun to draw across his expressive features, I saw a flicker of vulnerability emerge, one that turned my heart over. Rachel, I'm no angel, and I understand that now more than ever, he said gently, bringing his voice down as if to wrap his words around her in softness. But I want to change, for you. I want to be better, not just for me, but for us. Rachel's breath caught, and in that fleeting moment, she looked like the child I had always known, innocent yet headstrong, and full of hope. She turned toward me, her eyes shimmering with anguish and love. Mom, please, I need your trust. I need to find out who I am, even if it means being there for Aiden. The air was thick and heavy, every breath an exertion under the weight of her words. My heart ached, echoing with the familiar refrain of love's paradox. Every step toward freedom felt like a step away from me. I reached for her, fingers brushing against her arm, a tether I wished could withstand the unraveling. Rachel, what if he's still entangled in something darkness brings? I pressed, uncertainty flooding my every thought. But my daughter, my brave girl, wouldn't let fear stand in her way. What if the world outside is the one I truly belong to? There it was, a flicker of light breaking through the clouds of doubt, a question that could redefine everything. Sometimes, love did demand courage. And sometimes, that courage meant letting go. Aidan took a breath, his presence shifting now defiant, yet softened with an ethereal weight of acceptance. "I'd never want to hurt her," he insisted, his voice trembling yet firm. "Rachel, I will fight for you. I promise." Every word felt like an oath, a thread woven of earnest desire, and I could sense the unyielding tension in the room shift slightly, becoming palpable as the storm swelled. It was a beautiful hope wrapped inside the fear of the unknown, straining the fragile bonds holding us together. "I can't protect you from everything," I whispered, vulnerability spilling forth in surrender. "But I can support your journey, no matter how rocky it may become." Tears brimmed in Rachel's eyes as she turned to me, an understanding light weaving itself deeper into heart. "Mom, that means everything." "Thank you," she said, standing tall, flower reaching toward the sun. And just as we stood together, a sense of calm washing over us amidst the turmoil, Tom's tension released, the dagger slipping from his hand and clattering to the floor in a moment of raw realization. It was a splinter of acceptance shimmering through the chaos that defined our lives. "Maybe I was wrong," he began, trembling ever so slightly, vulnerability spilling out like an unguarded dam. "Perhaps this is not my decision, and you deserve the chance to grow." He stepped back, allowing Rachel the space she needed, and in that singular moment, the weight of years of expectations began to shift. Aidan took a cautious step toward Rachel, reaching for her hand. "Let me show you who I want to be," he said softly, the sincerity in his gaze unwavering. And I could see if love could shine through the uncertainties, illuminating every possible choice she'd have to confront moving forward. "Just promise me," I said softly, a sense of resolution blooming within. "Promise that if you ever feel scared or in danger, you'll come home." Rachel nodded, and the flicker of reassurance filled my heart with warmth. As time slipped forward, shadows remained, but the path ahead was brighter, bending toward newfound freedom and courage sculpted by choice. "You're strong, Rachel. You'll make it through," I said, letting the tears flow freely now. "Trust your heart, and let it lead you." Taking a deep breath, the winds outside calmed for the briefest moment, echoing the release of tension in our very lives. As Rachel and Aidan clasped hands, the promise of love intertwining against the odds, something profound shifted within me. In the delicate balance that continued to stretch between safety and experience, I felt a tangible strength arise. Yes, I would support her. Love, as exquisite as it was, often required the ultimate courage to embrace the unknown. Even if the journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty, we were ready. Together. I turned back, confronting the storm brewing in the background, unafraid now to let go. I could breathe, and that felt like home. As the quiet settled around us, the setting sun glanced off the horizon, igniting the sky in fiery hues, a beautiful canvas that signified that everything had changed, and the only constant now was love itself. And like that, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, we would venture into the storm together, hearts intertwined, because love was always worth fighting for. And in that truth, we'd always find our way home.